Good morning, everybody, and happy Wednesday. It's hard to believe it is already our hump day, but welcome back. My name is Ivana if you are new here, and this is your lunch break. Now, today we've got a really special conversation. We have our own Carol Robinson from AL.com, and Carol is here to tell us about something that happened yesterday, and that was a all-day hearing, a court hearing regarding the fatal Riverchase Galleria shooting that happened last month. Now, if you have gotten caught up in the news cycle and maybe gotten a little bit rusty on that situation, I have my notes here, so I'll give you a quick recap. That Galleria shooting happened on July the 3rd. It left 8-year-old Roy Tay Giles Jr. dead and 3 others injured, including 1 child and 2 adults injured. And there have been 3 men charged with capital murder and assault in that case. Now, the hearing yesterday involved all 3 of these men. Carol was there all day, and she's here to tell us what the detective testified to at that hearing, and also what these young men had to say and what their lawyers had to say for their sides of the story. So, Carol, thanks so much for coming and breaking this down for us. I know that was a long day yesterday.
It was a very long day.
I know it was. Tell us, first of all, give us the names of these men who are charged in Roy Tay's killing and the wounding of those other 3 people. And also, were they all in court together? Or tell us how that worked a little bit.
Right. So we have 3 men charged with capital murder and 3 counts of second-degree assault. So the capital murder obviously is for Roy Tay's death. And then the 3 counts of assault included an 11-year-old girl was shot, and then an adult male and an adult female. We have Montez Coleman, he's 22. We have King Williams, who is 19, and Demetrius Jackson, who is also 19. It's always hard when you have 3 defendants in a preliminary hearing. And for those who don't know, a preliminary hearing is the court appearance where a lead detective usually testifies to the judge and to the court the facts of the case, and then a judge decides whether there is enough evidence against the suspects to bound the case over to a grand jury for indictment consideration. It's definitely not rare to have 3 defendants in one preliminary hearing, though the norm is 1. What made this even more unusual, I think, is that we had 3 defendants in one courtroom when 2 of the defendants are claiming that the 3rd tried to kill them, and the 3rd is claiming the other 2 tried to kill them. So to say it was a little bit tense and a little bit awkward would be an understatement.
Absolutely. And let's, again, we've got these 3 people, Montez Coleman, King Williams, and Demetrius Jackson, all appearing in court together for this preliminary hearing. And again, I know Carol gave a little bit of what a preliminary hearing is, but the way this works is that the lead detective, as Carol said, got up and testified, and then the lawyers for those 3 men had the opportunity to question that detective. And this lasted, again, all day. There was a lot of testimony that came out. So, Carol, can you start off by just giving us a little bit of a breakdown of what happened that day on July 3rd and what led to the minutes where these shots were fired?
According to the testimony yesterday, Montez Coleman was at the mall to buy a new shirt for a party he was going to later that night. All of this happened between the food court and down toward Macy's. I believe that's right. Food court, Children's Place. So Montez met up with 2 of his friends there, one of them being a Birmingham rapper known as Big Yavo Malden, and another man who was Malden's manager. According to testimony, Coleman was somewhat of a bodyguard or, quote, muscle for Yavo Malden. They were at the kiosk and saw a group of 5 men coming down the escalator, and that group included Williams and Jackson.
So of these 3 men, Coleman is with a separate group of people, and right. Williams and Jackson are together in another group.
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
So according to Coleman, the guys on the escalator, which would include Williams and Jackson, kind of mean mugged him and raised up their shirts to show that they had guns in their waistbands. At that point, they came down the escalator. both sides kind of claim that one person bumped into the other and words were exchanged. Videos shown in court yesterday showed Montez Coleman as being the one that was talking. And, there was no audio in the Galleria videos, but, according to the testimony, he was animated when he was talking. So you could see that Montez Coleman was talking.
So we have a story where supposedly the men bump into each other and physically bump into each other. So let's break this down. It might be easier to go through each of the men's separate accounts of what happened then. So something that you mentioned in your story, and we're leaving that here in our comments link if you want to read about what happened at that testimony. Again, if you have questions, let us know. I'm watching them come in. But something the detective said was that there were at least 12 rounds fired in just 4 seconds. So those 4 seconds and what led to those 4 seconds are what's critical here. Montez Coleman, who was the person that was actually taken into custody at the mall, he was the only one of the 3 taken into custody there. Let's talk about what his story is. Now, he had an AR-15 style gun, and police said they found one of those 12 rounds that was fired from the AR-15 style. So what is Coleman's account of that minute?
Coleman's account is that he felt his life was threatened when they had displayed weapons and mean mugged him, and he fired a shot. The new testimony yesterday, which we have heard all along because Hoover police have said all along this could have been so much worse, was that Montez Coleman's AR-15 pistol jammed. So the shell casing, he fired one shot. It went up into the wall, almost to the second story above the Starbucks. But the shell casing remained in the gun. So when the next round went to feed, it's what they call a double feed, and it jammed. And that is why Hoover police have said all along this could have been so much worse. If that AR-15 had not jammed, probably a lot more bullets would have been fired. So that was what Montez Coleman says. He fired that shot, and then he just fired one shot and ran.
So one thing that I want to point out that you mentioned in your story, Carol, is that we're talking about how this could have been worse because of that AR-15 style gun. And that was fired or was held in a book bag. And police said that there were, like you said, the gun had jammed, but police said that there were about 75 rounds that were found in that backpack.
He had 2 gun magazines, one that was attached to the gun, a spare one in the book bag, and then 25 more rounds of ammunition that were in a sock. And like we said in the story, he actually raised the book bag and fired the AR-15 through the book bag.
Something that I find interesting is that one of the people, I'm trying to see who it was. I believe it was King Williams, said that he saw Coleman raise his weapon, and that is when he fired back in self-defense. But I'm curious how you see somebody raise a weapon if that weapon is in a backpack.
Exactly.
And how do you fire through a backpack?
I mean, he just the video showed him putting his hand into the backpack, raising the backpack, and a flash went off. Again, keep in mind, Coleman was with Yavo Malden, who is a rapper. King Williams is also a rapper. And so what King told police was that he saw Yavo Malden when he was coming down the escalator and believed that Yavo Malden's group, H2K, had a bounty, I guess, or a hit out on him. So that is why King Williams immediately fired when he saw a gun coming at him.
And again, that gun was in the backpack. So he says he saw the gun coming. It was in the backpack. And we mentioned that the man that Montez Coleman was with was a rapper. King was also a rapper. There was talk yesterday that this dispute and this kind of ongoing beef between the two groups of men could have stemmed over rap lyrics.
And they didn't elaborate on that. But what they did say in testimony was that there had been a previous dispute between the men over rap lyrics. Now, some of those involved said that was no longer an issue, but police maintain that some dispute over rap lyrics or rap video or rap rivals led to this incident.
Quick answer a couple of quick questions. One was leave Daniel Perry. That was an AR-15 style pistol. Is that correct, Carol?
Correct.
Okay.
AR-15 pistol.
Not a rifle type gun. A couple of questions.
It was altered. It was sawed off.
Okay. Question
So
from
it still
both
took rifle rounds.
Okay. Okay. There's a lot of gray area that can be in there. So thanks for clarifying that. Kiki and LaShun both ask, do we know what bullet killed Royte? And that is a no. Ballistics often take a while to come back. We have not got that information yet.
Can I address that though?
Yeah, please.
What they said in testimony yesterday was that they were not able to recover any bullets from any of the victims, but all of the victims that were struck by gunfire were behind Coleman. So we know Coleman only fired one shot, which lodged in the wall above Starbucks. So the victims that were struck by the gunfire that were behind Coleman obviously came from the two guns firing towards Coleman. And that would be Jackson and Williams, both who have admitted to firing guns, just claiming that they did so in self-defense.
Right. So question from Tazisha. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. That happens to me all the time. So sorry to Tazisha, but she says, who shot first? Carol, can you answer that?
Testimony indicates that Montez Coleman shot first.
And again, can you explain a little bit, and this might not be as helpful for people who are not familiar with the Galleria, but where exactly, we understand that the group Williams and Jackson were with were coming down an escalator, and we understand that Coleman and his group were at a kiosk, and the way his bullet stuck into the Starbucks wall near Starbucks. So I think that some people have questions about the exact layout of how this happened, who was shooting right to left, and where exactly is the children's place where Royte was and where Royte was shot.
Right. And I can't claim to be an expert on the layout of the Galleria as much as I have shopped there. But you had the escalator coming down. So everything that was fired toward Montez Coleman was south of that escalator. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Children's Place is down toward Macy's, that side of the mall, the south side of the mall.
Right.
Everything was within about 100 yards of each other, though, less than 100 yards.
Questions again about we talked about the layout of the mall. We talked about the gun. Questions about also what if it wasn't the rap lyrics, what could have led to this dispute between the two groups of men? And again, did the two groups of men know they were going to encounter each other at the mall that day?
Absolutely not. Nobody in any group claimed to have had prior knowledge that the other would be there, but all were out shopping. It was just a coincidence that they ran into each other. And, it sounds crazy, but it's not uncommon. I mean, just a look, just an attitude, anything can prompt a shooting. And a lot of us find that hard to believe in a crowded mall, but it's happened before.
Question. Go ahead.
A reason that we would understand.
Right. We've got a question from Danny, and he asks about the guns. Do we know anything from the testimony yesterday about were these guns that actually belonged and were purchased by these men? Were these borrowed guns, stolen guns?
Both Demetrius Jackson and King Williams had permits to carry a concealed weapon. The Galleria is a gun-free zone, so but they did have Alabama, concealed carry permits. The testimony showed that after the shooting, one gun had been bought from a pawn shop. I know that, and the other had been borrowed. So after the shooting, one of the suspects went to an apartment in Tarrant, broke down the gun into pieces and gave it to a female to get rid of. And then the other person had borrowed the Glock, and that would be Jackson, borrowed the Glock and returned it to its rightful owner. Neither gun has been recovered by police.
Neither the 40 caliber pistol or the 9mm handgun has been recovered, but that AR-15 style has been.
Right, because Coleman was in possession. Coleman still had the AR-15 in his backpack when he was arrested right outside the Galleria.
And of those 12 rounds, what police said is that one was from that AR-15 style, which we talked about. 5 were from the 40 caliber, and 6 were from the 9mm. Do we know which Williams had and which Jackson had?
Yeah, it's in the story, I believe, and I'd have to go back and look.
I believe Jackson had the 9mm.
Jackson had the Glock, and Williams had the 40 cal.
Let's take a good question from Catherine. And Catherine says, we understand that there was not our police don't believe there was a plan to go into the mall with the intent to shoot. But she makes the point of saying that Coleman had 75 rounds of ammo in his bag. Do we know why he had that much ammo, why he was carrying that into the mall?
Coleman told police that he takes that gun with him in his backpack everywhere he goes. That he did not go to the Galleria that day with he didn't put the gun in the bag with the intent or the feeling that there would be trouble, that he took that gun with him everywhere.
Now, let's talk about the jail call. There was mentions of a call that was made in jail, and I think most of us are aware jail calls are always recorded and can be easily pulled. So what did prosecutors say about a phone call that was made from the jail, from the county jail, from one of these suspects?
Right. When Demetrius Jackson was on a phone call with somebody and basically just said, "Who snitched on me? When I get out, I'm going to pop them." So,
Harry says, looks like somebody got extremely lucky when that gun jammed it. And Harry, you're right. That's what Hoover police said.
Hoover police have said that from day one, though they didn't want it released at that time that the gun had jammed. We knew it had, and had it not, there would have definitely been more injuries and if not deaths.
Again, Gregor, we're not sure the bullet that we're not sure exactly which gun killed Royte, and we don't know that at this point. April, several other people make good comments. Yes, the Galleria is located in Hoover, which is outside of Birmingham. It's just a little ride down the road here, but it is located technically in Hoover. Hoover police are handling this investigation. Right. Carol, let's shift and let's talk about 8-year-old Royte. Royte was killed here outside the children's place. Because of COVID, he and his family had to wait outside of that store before they could go in. That's just the new reality now. He was outside with his family, I believe, getting July 4th outfits.
Right, they're getting new outfits for the 4th of July.
And something that I think so many of us can relate to as either when we were children or those that have children, getting those cute matching patriotic outfits. Right. And he was killed in front of that store waiting to go in, just in the crossfire. Was his family present at the court hearing yesterday?
Yes, his mother and stepfather, mother Jesselyn Layfield, stepfather Anthony Jones, both were there throughout, the entire 6.5 hours worth of testimony. They told me that they would not be missing any bit of the court proceedings. I asked Jesselyn how she's doing, and it's a struggle, but she said she wakes up every morning looking for Royte. Her youngest daughter still just thinks Royte's hurt and bad and will be coming home. The 6-year-old sibling obviously is having a hard time having witnessed it, and living without her brother. But Jesselyn told me that she, nothing's going to bring Royte back. And she's just trying to go on each day without hate in her heart, because she knows that was the type of person Royte was, and that's how he would want her to act. And she has said that all along, that she has let what she believes Royte would do in the situation guide her actions since the shooting happened a month ago.
And I think that this is an ironic point here to make. And somebody even said in our comments, said that not all rappers are gangbangers, was their exact quote, because we mentioned several of these people were involved in rap groups. And that person is totally right. And I think that it's important to note that actually Royte wanted to be a rapper.
He sure did. That was his goal. He had a passion for music and a passion for art, and he wanted to be a rapper.
And that's the irony in all of this. And a couple of other people asking, and I know I mentioned this earlier, Carol, but tell us if this dispute was not over those rap lyrics, do we have any idea what it could be over? Or there was obviously kind of an ongoing beef between these groups of men.
Right. All police have said is that it was believed to be an ongoing beef over some rap lyrics, or a rap video, or just rap rivals. Again, like I emphasized, it doesn't unfortunately take a lot, for gunfire to erupt. One person can bump another person can look at somebody the wrong way. And more often than not, that's what happens here. There's not always a big elaborate plan or reason, unfortunately, sadly.
People again asking the ages of these men. Montez Coleman is 22, King Williams is 19, and Demetrius Jackson is also 19. They're facing charges of capital murder and second-degree assault. Carol, tell us about the other three victims, that 11-year-old and then those two adults that were injured in this situation. How are they doing?
I think they were all treated and released and are expected to testify, if and when an indictment comes down, and then it goes to trial. Like I said, one adult female, I think she was maybe late teens, early 20s, an adult male who drove himself to American Family Care and then was transported to the hospital. Also, the 11-year-old girl, she was shot twice. She was shot in the face and the arm. And she is one of several people from the mall that day that have filed a lawsuit against the Galleria and its management and security company. Roy Tay's family has also filed a lawsuit. And then a woman who was not shot but suffered multiple broken bones in the chaos that followed the gunfire. She has filed a lawsuit. And, yesterday was the first time we could hear it, but we couldn't see it because of where they had the media in the courtroom. But it was the first time we actually heard, the audio of the gunfire, and it was immediate. I mean, you could not tell one shot, sometimes when you hear gunfire, you hear one shot and then there's a pause and you hear the return fire. In this, and it may be because of the acoustics of the Galleria, I'm not sure, but it just sounded like just one big just burst of gunfire.
Well, having 12 rounds fired in 4 seconds doesn't seem like there's any amount of time between each round.
Well, right. And that is what the prosecutor pointed out when in talking about the defendant's claim of self-defense, was that their guns had to be ready to go. They had to be cocked. There had to be a round in the chamber. Their hands were on the guns. Otherwise, there would have been a pause between the gunfire. Like you've heard, you hear a shot and then a couple seconds and you hear the rest while they're pulling out their gun, cocking the hammer, and aiming. And this was all together. So that was something that the prosecutor used to show that everybody was willing and ready to shoot in this incident.
So we know that Williams and Jackson are claiming self-defense here and saying that Coleman shot first. What does Coleman say?
Coleman is also claiming self-defense. He claims that, they displayed weapons and he felt that he was about to be shot. So he shot first.
So he does admit to shooting.
And what his attorney said was, all of the attorneys, in fact, said something similar to this. Was, when a gun is pointed at you or you are threatened with a weapon, are you supposed to wait until they shoot before you defend yourself? And so that is the self-defense claim.
But he does admit to firing the first shot.
All three admit to firing a gun, and all three say they felt in danger for their lives.
There are a lot of comments here about posting the video. Carol, what do we know? Will that video ever, for the record, we do not have that video. We are not in possession of it to post it. Carol, correct. Do we know if that video will ever be made public?
Typically they don't make any of that public until adjudication in a court. So, it will be played publicly in the trial if it goes to trial. Whether or not, we can see it at that time is just based on where we're told to sit. Someday the police might release it, but it's considered work product under Alabama law and does not, not public record at this point, even though it has been entered into evidence.
So just a lot of people asking that. We don't have it. We are not in possession of it. So we cannot, can't post something that we don't have. And we do not know if or when that video will be made public for us to post or for anybody to see publicly outside of a courtroom. Carol, thank you so much for taking some time and breaking this down for us. We got other questions kind of even about the lawsuits that are happening here. I know our wonderful producer has left the links to Carol's stories about those lawsuits filed against the Galleria and about that testimony from yesterday. You can find both of those here. If you have any other questions about this, please leave them in the comments and Carol or I will get back to you. And again, Carol, this is a complicated case, and especially I know you and I talked earlier, we've both been in courtrooms where there have been 3 or, multiple people and that have different stories and are all involved in that. And it can be really hard to follow. So
it is.
Thank you for breaking that down for most of us who were not able to be there. So thanks again, Carol. Thank all of you for watching, and everybody, we will catch you on tomorrow's episode.
Thanks for having me.